So let's jump into this conversation.
Pro wrestling today. A lot of people are unhappy with certain things, whether it be AEW or the WWE storylines and where they're going. How do you feel between the two in terms of, like, let's just say for AEW, for instance, what do you see what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right?
Missed opportunity. That's probably the best way to sum it up. It is has been a gigantic missed opportunity. By that, I mean, you've got a billionaire. He's got passion for the business. He's got $1 billion in his checking account. Mm-hmm. You should be able to figure out how to produce a show that's really successful. And I really thought they would be initially. I am pretty convinced that the powers to be in AEW and the people who have influence, like Dave Meltzer, no matter what anybody says, don't even know what a good story is. They don't know the components of a story. They have no idea how to structure or tell a story.
I agree with you 100%. I've said that numerous times. He doesn't have the mindset. He's got the money to do what he's got to do. Instead of bringing in somebody that's been somewhere and has done something with a wrestling company, listen to their mind and how they're telling you how to make things happen. Because if it worked for them, it could work for you. But you trying to come in and do it on your own because you've been a fan for many years, it's not going to work.
And again,
it's just a fact that Tony Khan, owner of AEW, should not be the head booker. That's just a fact. He should not be the head booker. Someone else should be the head booker. I know they have probably a creative team and storylines and people who write the stories, but he makes the final decisions on everything. Maybe that's fine, but there should be someone, and I don't know, maybe there is, that like basically is like the overseer of everything creative wise, and then takes it to like Tony for final approval, because ultimately it obviously is his company. So
I like Tony on a personal level to the degree that I know him. I don't know him really, but I would say he's genuinely a good person. But when it comes to wrestling, he's like Jerry Jones of the NFL. Yeah. He's got money to buy a team, and damn it, he's going to go in and coach that team the way he wants to coach it, no matter what. Yeah. As opposed to using his resources to find the very best coach he can and work with that coach, develop that coach, and develop that team. But Jerry Jones needs to be the guy. He wants to be the one that everybody looks at that took the Dallas Cowboys to a Super Bowl. And that's what Tony wants. Tony wants to be Vince McMahon. Tony wants to be Paul Heyman. Tony wants to be Eric Bischoff in the 90s. Tony wants that recognition, but he doesn't have the instinct that it takes to get there. He's got the money, he's got the platform, just doesn't have the instincts. And instincts are something you're either born with or you're not. And if you're born with them, you have to really develop them. And Tony wasn't born with them, and he's certainly not trying to develop it. I'm kind of excited about WWE, not because of what I see in the ring necessarily. I've kind of, to be honest, 35 years in the business, probably 60 as a fan. Not a lot I haven't already seen a bunch of times. So it's hard for me to get really excited about things that go on generally in the ring. I get excited about great promos. Mm-hmm. But as far as matches go, even though they could be stellar matches, it's hard for me to get excited about them. I think the product in the ring is getting to the point in the storylines, they're getting a little too thin for me. They're not rich enough. They're not quite deep enough for me to really sink my teeth into. So they just don't catch my imagination.
Some people complain that it's stale. Some people complain that it's not what it used to be 2 years ago, when things were really, really going well for the WWE. Would you say maybe, is it the creative? Is it the writers? Is it Triple H? Or is it TKO? Could it be because of the ticket prices, the way it is, people don't want to invest in the company anymore because they're too high? Because that's another thing that people are complaining about, is the ticket prices.
I hear that, and I agree with it. On the other hand, last year at WrestleMania, down, last I heard, percent compared to last year, but last year was a world record. So I know there's a lot of talk about ticket prices, and I know it's real, but I think they're two separate issues. Those people who are complaining about ticket prices are people who obviously love the product enough they want to buy a ticket to go but can't afford it. So they don't have a problem with the product, they have a problem with the ticket price. Then you have another group of people, almost all of them in the internet wrestling community, who
Yeah, no, I disagree with that sort of framing there. I think they don't love the product enough to spend the money on the ticket. Like a $275 ticket to go to WrestleMania, you have to really be invested in the product. For a $50 ticket, you don't have to be that invested. You just say, oh, it's $50. I'm just going to go to fucking WrestleMania, or I'm going to go to Monday Night Raw. I live in Vegas. Boom, might as well. But if I'm going to spend money on a flight and a ticket and a hotel to get to WrestleMania in the same city it was the year before, I have to be super invested in the product. And WWE hasn't created that. They've created a mediocre product and higher ticket prices, which lead to lower people watching the product. So I don't agree with Bischoff's framing there. I think he's seeing it the wrong way.
They get their dopamine hit. I think the product falls somewhere in between. I'll start with Triple H. I think Paul Levesque is absolutely the best choice for that role. Paul is a traditional wrestling guy. Probably has much more respect for the old school psychology, pacing, and match style than probably anybody in that company other than maybe Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, right? I know he respects it, and he has a deep knowledge that he can pull from. And we all do. Just like I pulled the idea from Aces and Eights off of a television show called Sons of Anarchy and just adapted it. Well, a lot of the stories that we see are stories that we saw in wrestling in 1960, but it's been evolved and adapted, right? We just changed a little bit. Paul's the right person to be steering that ship. I don't know everybody on that team creatively, but I know many of them, and they're all pretty good. I think if there's a problem with a product, if it feels a little flat right now, I think it's starting to feel flat for the same reasons it felt flat to me back in 2019 when I complained about there being a sameness. There's just a level of familiarity in each one of the characters, in each one of the storylines, in each one of the presentations, in each one of the promos. Now, there are some characters like CM Punk, for example. You know, when you know when he grabs a mic, something fun's going to happen. You don't want to miss that, right? And there's a couple others. You know, Becky Lynch kind of falls into that category, not to the same level as CM Punk, but I really love Becky Lynch's work as a character. There's a few of those that stand out, but the rest of them, there's a sameness to it. And I think that they have to find a way to address that. There needs to be more diversity in the types of stories they're telling, in the types of characters they have, to get that sense of something fresh and new. There's just
Well, the problem I think also is ultimately that TKO is obsessed with viral clips. And so they maximize their kind of attention for the post on social, kind of like these curated podcasts do. Like it goes segment to segment. So each segment can be a post on social that goes viral instead of talking about the whole totality of the podcast, of the show, and creating compelling stories and things that last a few weeks that have to draw people's attention in, that take time to develop. They're thinking about what's right now that we can post immediately as it's happening that's going to get 10 million views or 1 million views that's going to be viral. That's why they hire Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee and fucking Little Yachty and all these people to get the viral mainstream media clips instead of actually developing what's happening inside the ring on a regular basis to garner to the actual wrestling fan base. They are sort of molding for a mainstream audience, which I think is the wrong direction.
Hey, fellas, you already know what time it is. It's time to level up. And you know, Blue Chew just dropped something crazy. I'm talking champ. Now, thank you, Blue Chew, for sponsoring.
I got the NWO shirt. I got, if you see behind me,
out of here.
I got the WCW neon sign.
Oh, I see it.
No. I was a huge fan of WCW growing up.
You're killing me.
But one question I had, and the NWO shirt reminds me, what are your thoughts on the John Cena heel turn? When that happened, everyone was comparing it to NWO, and some people were even saying the John Cena heel turn is better than Hulk Hogan's heel turn when he joined the NWO. I can guarantee you one thing. I'm not going to be wearing a John Cena heel turn shirt 25 years from now. So what were your thoughts on the John Cena heel turns and the comparisons that was getting to NWO?
I've been asked that question, and I make a decision. Do I want to make myself sound really smart and pat myself on the back, or do I want to be honest? And I always default to honest. And here's the truth. Right place, right time, right situation. Hulk Hogan was going flat as a babyface. The red and yellow thing was not working. He knew it. I knew it. Scott and Kevin coming off of WWF, being able to bring them as a surprise, teaming up with Hogan, that was just nothing but perfect timing. I had nothing to do with that. So the coincidence of having Scott Hall come over and then Kevin Nash right on his heels, no pun intended, Hulk Hogan was off doing a movie. He wasn't supposed to come back till October. So it was timing, coincidence, really, and chemistry. And then the idea took off. I know I had a rough idea what I wanted it to be, but of course it changed once Hulk, got into the picture a little bit. But it really was just right place, right time. And the John Cena thing, it was horrible. John's a friend of mine, so it's not a personal thing. But there was no setup. With the Hogan turn, the who's the third man, that part of the story started immediately.
Yeah, the John Cena heel turn, itself was cool to watch, right? Itself, John Cena in his final year becoming a heel. Holy fuck. Crazy shit to see live, to watch happen live. No setup, weird with the Rock angle, weird with Travis Scott. Now TKO only did it to push ticket sales for the Elimination Chamber, and it just fell flat. And then the main event that year at WrestleMania 41 also fell flat because of it, because the weird sort of looming Rock Travis Scott thing never happened. And then Cody Rhodes wins the title back, and now John Cena is just like a babyface again. I get why they did it. Shock, awe, his last year, cool. But I thought, again, looking back on it, unnecessary. At the time, I was fired up about it. I thought it was going to be great. I thought The Rock and John Cena were going to have this thing going into his last year, and then John Cena's very last match was going to be against The Rock or whatever. And then Travis Scott fucking flaked and was a loser. And so it ended up being bad, and they fixed it because John Cena went back to babyface, and it ended up being just fine. But itself, at the time, I think I did say it was better than the Hogan one, but I think I was wrong about that. Now that I'm listening to Eric Bischoff speak.
To July 6th, nobody knew who the third man was going to be. And that was the mystery that everybody was talking about. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Nobody expected it to be Hulk. So much of it was timing.
So let me ask you this. Saudi Arabia next year, WrestleMania. Yes or no? Good idea or bad idea?
I don't like it. I'll still watch. And I don't have any, political.
No.
It's not that. But I would feel the same way if they decided to have the Super Bowl in London. Hell no. That's ours. You guys can watch it on TV and you.
I don't like Saudi Arabia simply because it's really hard for the regular fan to get there. It makes it really hard for the family of four who wants to make their yearly trip to WrestleMania, and they live in fucking Minnesota, and they plan every year to go to WrestleMania, and it's fucking awesome for them because that sounds sick. Can't wait to take my son to a WrestleMania. Now they're going to go to Saudi Arabia, and they got to spend 10x the amount of money to get to the Middle East and all this type of stuff, and there's wars happening all fucking around, and is it safe and all these types of things. It's if you're going to do it out of the United States, at least go to a market where it's a bit easier to get to, and the fans are fired up about wrestling. The Royal Rumble was so kind of it wasn't loud. It wasn't exciting. Go to I don't know, when AEW does All In London, it seems fucking awesome. So I don't like it for that regard. Also, I just think if the first time you do out of the country, you go there. But WWE makes $1 billion from Saudi Arabia, so of course they're going to go.
I feel that way about WrestleMania. It's a fabric of our American culture. And while I like the idea of exposing our culture internationally, I think it's a good thing for a lot of reasons. But not WrestleMania, man. Don't take that. No.
I think a lot of fans will agree with you on that. Don't take it away. This is ours. When WrestleMania, of course, is here in the United States, we get those. So people in the business make money through all of that. Now it seems like they're not going to be able to do that because it won't be here in the United States. And you just can't go over to another country and say, I'm going to put on a wrestling show or I'm going to do this and that. You can't do that like you can here. You can't find a building and say, I'm going to put WrestleCon in here, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of red tape you got to go through to even do that. Just like I'm sure it was a lot of red tape for WWE to come over there and to do something like WrestleMania.
Yeah, and, you know, I think the American culture is a little bit unique in the way we support, you know, like the fan fest type of opportunities, the conventions, the autograph signings. Yes, they do exist internationally.
Right.
But not like they do here in the States. You're not going to go over to Saudi Arabia and try to recreate a WrestleCon or any kind of Comic Con, you know, format. It's just not good about the small industry that popped up around pay-per-views, you know, because it's not just WrestleMania. That's the biggest, obviously. But I've been getting offers for years to do events that are the same weekend as WrestleMania. That is a really big business, and those not only the promoters aren't going to make any money this year, a lot of talent, a lot of independent talent, a lot of people like me that could go make a pretty decent living on a weekend, make a decent amount of money and have fun doing it, aren't going to get that call.
Do you see AEW maybe doing an event during that time that can maybe, you know, fill in for WrestleMania being gone? I don't think they'll be able to compete with WrestleMania like that, but to say have something in the States that would be able to.
They should absolutely have an event. AEW should absolutely host an event the same weekend as WrestleMania in the United States. And maybe you can have WrestleCon there. You can have the GCW shows there. You can have all the independent guys there. You can have the fans who didn't want to go to WWE. You can attract them there. It could be a big weekend for AEW potentially if you run a show in the United States at the same time. Now, I wouldn't do the show because the Saudi Arabia show is going to be early in the day, right? Because of the time change. So you could still run a show at night. And get the audience that, you know, maybe they would do that. I don't know. I think that's a good idea, though. Could be a good idea.
Being WWE and WrestleMania.
So here, I don't think anybody will. If I was Tony, though, with Tony's money, I would at the very least, I would consider running a stadium for a weekend and have all my vendors in the stadium, wherever it is, we'll call it a stadium, in that stadium. You may have 60, 80 vendors, guys signing autographs, pictures, all the things you would normally see. But I would have the biggest big screen TV I could find and then have a watch along. Now, I'm sure there would be issues with that, and it's maybe not even possible. But if it were possible to pay to be able to watch it on a big screen, but have it in a big stadium with vendors and food and all the things you normally find, and then be able, everybody that bought a ticket, be able to watch together, because it's the communal experience of a live event. It's sitting next to somebody you don't even know and all of a sudden bonding with them because of what's happening in the ring, and you're both enjoying the same thing. That's why sports works, right? That's why wrestling works. It's the communal experience and sitting next to somebody and getting.
So Bischoff's idea is that they have a stadium. AEW buys out a stadium, sells tickets to watch the WWE show.
It's all the same human connective tissue that makes it feel good and work. You could possibly stage something like that, but
it's almost like back. Let me interrupt. It's almost like back in the day, closed circuit TV.
Yes,
that's almost like closed circuit TV when they had. Because I remember watching WrestleMania 4. You know, the year that Macho Man won the belt. I saw it as a kid with my grandmother at the Meadowlands in the arena with the big screen, like you said, and you know it was packed. It was huge. So many people, and they had vendors. They had all the people that you would normally see at a wrestling match. They had them there at the Meadowlands. And it was like you could buy the T-shirt, you could buy this and that. And my grandmother, who wasn't smart to the business, but said to me, I remember when we were leaving because Savage had won the title and WrestleMania was over. she walked out. She goes, I already knew Savage was winning. And I said, what? I was like, this is not, how do you know? It hadn't even happened yet. She goes, oh boy, stop. She's like, I knew it. Because, I wasn't smart to the business at all. And then she said something that was unique. She goes, all this Randy Savage merchandise that's being displayed out here.
Whoa.
And she picked up on that right away. And like I said, she watched the show, but she noticed that there was so much merchandise of Randy Savage that was being sold that night that she was like, I knew it. There was no way they could have that much merchandise off of one man to have all that merchandise and him not win.
That was your grandmother?
That was my grandmother.
Your grandmother was wicked smart.
And I didn't understand that until years later, and just remembering different things that happened that day, and then going back to that conversation that she said, because of the fact that the WWE had so much merchandise on Savage, more than Hogan, she picked up that Savage was going over in the win. I was shocked.
You know what? You should see how she would do on a blackjack table in Vegas, because your grandma had something special going on there.
Listen, I would have loved to.
She was a very critical thinker.
Yes, she was. She walked in there thinking of everything, and I had no clue. And I was shocked when I finally realized, going back to that conversation, that she had said that, and it just stayed with me for so many years. I never told that story, but I just thought about it as I was talking to you.
Now, I'm assuming your grandmother's no longer with us?
Yeah, she passed away in 95.
I would have liked to have met your grandmother. I would have loved to have picked her brain, because she sounds like a very, very interesting woman.
She really was. She was very smart. She raised me. She helped raise me because my mom was pregnant at 15, had me at 16. And she was the fist. She was the one that kept the family together. And remind you, we lived in Brooklyn. We lived in the projects. My biological father was a big-time drug dealer, so he wasn't around. And my grandmother just kept everything going. She was the fist that kept my mom and myself afloat. And me and my mother both, miss her dearly, but we know that the reason why we are where we are today was because of her.
What a great thing to be able to say.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, thank you so much. I know we got a lot of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor and a pleasure. And again, if I've never said this before, I'm saying it again. It was an honor working with you and an honor meeting you and being with you. As far as I'm concerned, you and Terry, you and Hogan, kept me grounded in TNA. And if it wasn't for you, because I felt like I was being messed with or what have you, I don't know where I would have been. Thank you so much for holding it down for me and helping me the way you did. You guys helped me so much. You have no idea how grateful I am and how many times I've mentioned that in interviews.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And it's meaningful to me. And one of the things, people ask me all the time, how do you feel about your wrestling career? And obviously, it's been grateful for it. I wouldn't be living in the house I'm living in, and my children wouldn't have had some of the experiences they've had and all that, my wife. But the one big takeaway is the people that I've met, and not all of them, as you know, but the really good ones like you. I'm really grateful for those relationships, because I know they'll last my lifetime. And you're at the top of that list. When I heard you were wanting to do this podcast, I was like really, really excited to do it, because you're a good man. And
Thank you.
I appreciate your friendship.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure I will see you again, like I've been seeing you on the Comic-Cons and things like that. Where can we get this? Where can we see Eric Bischoff?
All right. Appreciate that. That's good.